This is a news. I'm Bakhtiar Sanovan. Let's go through the main headlines. Ukraine targets Russian military sites as drone war intensifies. Fresh Gaza violence tests ceasefire in Khan Younis. And polls open in Armenia as voters choose new parliament. Ukraine says it carried out long-range drone strikes on Russian military targets, including a naval base near St. Petersburg, while Russia claims it faced one of the largest drone attacks of the war. As both sides report new battlefield gains and civilian casualties, the conflict continues to escalate across multiple regions.
Russia says Ukraine has launched an unprecedented drone attack on St. Petersburg as the city hosted the final day of a major economic forum. Officials in the surrounding Leningrad region said more than 140 drones were shot down. St. Petersburg Governor Alexander Beglov urged residents to stay indoors. Regional Governor Alexander Drozdenko said the attacks caused a fire at a military facility and forced evacuations. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the strikes targeted Russian military assets, including naval arsenals and a naval base in Kronstadt, the main base of Russia's Baltic Fleet. Zelensky said Ukrainian drones traveled around 1,000 kilometers to reach the area. He also said an oil depot in Russia's southern Krasnodar region, about 500 kilometers away, was hit as part of what Ukraine calls its long-range sanctions campaign against Russian infrastructure. A commander involved in the operation told the BBC that Russian targets remain vulnerable to drone attacks. Late Saturday, Russia's defense ministry said air defense systems had intercepted or destroyed 339 Ukrainian drones across more than a dozen regions, including the Moscow area and the Black Sea. Ukraine, meanwhile, accused Russia of attacking Zaporizhzhia, where 3 people, including a 10-year-old child, were injured in a drone attack. Regional officials said at least 8 residential buildings and several other structures were damaged. On the battlefield, Russia said its forces captured the settlement of Shevchenko in Ukraine's Kharkiv region. Russia further claimed its air defenses destroyed 13 guided bombs, 4 HIMARS rockets, and 911 fixed-wing drones. The latest exchanges come one day after President Vladimir Putin questioned the value of direct talks with President Zelensky, despite Ukraine's calls for negotiations to help end the war.
Several people have reportedly been killed in renewed violence in southern Gaza, where local sources say Israeli strikes and demolition operations hit areas east of Khan Younis. The latest incidents come as a fragile ceasefire faces growing pressure, with both sides accusing the other of repeated violations.
Palestinian sources say Israeli military operations continued in southern Gaza on Saturday, with reports of strikes, shelling and demolitions east of Khan Younis. A strike reportedly hit Bani Suhaila, while residents reported gunfire and artillery fire near the town's roundabout. Witnesses also described demolition operations in eastern parts of Khan Younis, although the extent of the damage could not be independently verified. The reports come despite a ceasefire that took effect on October 10, 2025, after 2 years of war between Israel and Hamas. The agreement was intended to reduce fighting, allow more humanitarian aid into Gaza, and create space for further negotiations. According to Gaza's health ministry, more than 880 people have been killed and over 2,645 injured in Israeli attacks since the ceasefire began. The ministry says the overall death toll since October 2023 has exceeded 72,000, with more than 172,000 injured. Humanitarian agencies say much of Gaza's civilian infrastructure has been damaged or destroyed, leaving many residents without reliable access to shelter, healthcare, clean water, and basic services. There was no immediate Israeli comment on the reported demolitions in eastern Khan Younis. Israel has previously said its forces operate against militant threats near areas under its control and maintain security along the ceasefire boundary. The latest incidents highlight the continuing fragility of the truce, with civilians in southern Gaza still facing uncertainty as diplomatic efforts continue.
The ceasefire between the United States and Iran is facing a new test after both sides exchanged military action. The U.S. says it struck Iranian drone and radar sites after shooting down 4 drones near the Strait of Hormuz. Iran called the strikes a violation of the ceasefire and responded by firing missiles at U.S. military facilities in Kuwait and Bahrain. Both Gulf states said the attacks were intercepted and condemned the missile launches. The United Arab Emirates and Qatar also criticized the attacks as concerns grow over renewed tensions in the region. Pakistan's Interior Minister Mohsen Naqvi and Iran's Interior Minister Eskander Momeni met in Iran's capital of Tehran on Saturday to discuss the ongoing war. During the meeting, both sides stressed the importance of continued diplomatic engagement and efforts to secure lasting peace and stability in the region. The talks followed an earlier meeting between the two ministers in Kyrgyzstan, where they reviewed bilateral relations and exchanged views on the latest regional situation. As tensions in the Middle East rise following an exchange of strikes between the United States and Iran, residents in Tehran are calling on both sides to reach a truce. This comes as many warn of the growing economic pressure caused by the conflict.
Following a fresh round of strikes around the Strait of Hormuz, residents in Tehran are urging Iran and the United States to reach a ceasefire agreement. Both sides remained engaged in indirect negotiations on Saturday in an effort to secure an interim deal that would halt their 3-month-old war. Residents say the conflict has increased economic pressure on Iranians.
God willing, they will reach an agreement. War is not a good thing for our country. Its negative consequences are enormous, especially for ordinary people. In particular, if our infrastructure is damaged, it is the people who will end up paying the price.
Every country has the right and the authority to defend its dignity and protect itself, and that is only natural. If an agreement is to be reached, both sides must show restraint. If one side attacks and the other remains silent, that is not what you call an agreement. I think my main concern, and the concern of many people in our country, is the economic situation and people's livelihoods. The pressure on people has become extremely severe, and something must be done about it.
Tehran was seeking access to billions of dollars in oil revenue, waivers on sanctions, the lifting of a US blockade on its ports, and leverage over the strait as part of any agreement, while issues including its nuclear program were left for further talks. US President Donald Trump has faced growing domestic political pressure to end the unpopular war as rising fuel prices at home weighed on voters. The conflict, which began in February, has driven up oil prices and disrupted supply chains, with the United Nations warning that rising fuel and transport costs were pushing millions closer to hunger.
Smoke rose over southern Lebanon after Israeli strikes hit several villages on Saturday. According to the Lebanese army, 2 officers and 1 soldier were killed when a military vehicle was struck on the Kardali-Nabatia road. The Israeli military said the vehicle was targeted after it was identified as a potential threat to its forces. It added that there were indications Hezbollah was preparing to open fire on Israeli troops from the area. The military said an official inquiry found that 2 Lebanese army officers and 1 soldier were inside the vehicle. An investigation into the incident is ongoing. The Lebanese army has not taken part in the fighting between Hezbollah and Israel and has largely remained outside the conflict. Voting is underway in Armenia's parliamentary elections, with millions of voters choosing a new National Assembly in a contest widely seen as a test of the country's political direction. The outcome could determine whether Armenia continues to strengthen ties with the West or moves closer to its traditional ally, Russia.
Armenia opened polling stations on Sunday at 8 a.m. local time for parliamentary elections. According to the Migration and Citizenship Service, around 2.5 million citizens are eligible to vote to elect the 101-seat National Assembly. A total of 2,005 polling stations have been set up across the country. and will remain open until 8 p.m. local time, after which vote counting will begin.
I came to the election hoping that our wishes will change something. I hope that I made the right choice, although it was difficult.
I would like Armenia to develop and become a modern country. This is only possible together with the European Union.
The Central Election Commission said all polling stations opened as scheduled. Election officials also reported several technical issues at some polling stations, including discrepancies between voters' ballot numbers on printed and electronic voter lists.
As every person understands it, the future is being decided, where the country goes, how it goes, and what happens next.
The Civil Contract Party, led by Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan, currently holds 69 seats following a snap parliamentary election in 2018. Pashinyan also cast his vote in the country's key parliamentary election. Speaking to journalists outside the polling station, he said Armenia would continue pursuing a balanced foreign policy while strengthening ties with the European Union.
Armenian future will be the strategy of strengthening independence, statehood, democracy, rule of law, and we will continue the democratic reform path, of course with the support of our European partners. It is a matter of foreign policy, and you know that we are providing balance and balancing foreign policy.
16 political parties and 2 political alliances have registered to take part in the election, including Civil Contract. The main opposition challengers include the Armenia Alliance, led by former President Robert Kocharyan, and Strong Armenia, a newly founded party led by billionaire Samvel Karapetyan, who is under house arrest on charges of inciting a coup.
U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has used the D-Day anniversary address to press NATO partners on burden sharing. Speaking from the Normandy beaches, he said America would continue to lead, but warned that capable allies must stand beside Washington when it matters.
Today, as we face an increasingly complex threat environment, we apply the lessons from 82 years ago learned on these beaches. Strong allies, each fully committed to doing their part, win wars. The men buried here fought in a warfighting alliance where every partner brought its full measure of industry, courage, and sacrifice. Not empty slogans, not lavish summits, not communiques. Real allies doing real things, taking real losses for a shared cause worth fighting and dying for. Each nation pulled its weight. Each nation bled. America will lead, and we must. But capable allies must be right there with us, shoulder to shoulder, in the breach, when it matters.
Peru's electoral authorities sent voting materials to Lima and Callao on Friday, June 5th, 2 days before the second round of voting. Police escorted the convoy while satellite systems monitored its route. The National Office of Electoral Processes said 217 trucks left warehouses in Lurin, delivering supplies to 2,253 schools set to serve as polling stations. The supplies included ballot boxes, reserve kits, polling staff equipment, signs, labels, voting booth and braille templates. Officials monitored the operation, while the Defense Ministry said more than 2,700 additional troops had been deployed to protect polling stations. Nationwide, more than 45,000 military personnel have been assigned to guard voting centers and election materials ahead of Sunday's second round. Pope Leo XIV is in Spain on a week-long visit focused on migration, social cohesion and the Church's role in modern Europe. Speaking in Madrid, he warned against a growing political polarization as he prepares for talks with Spanish leaders and visits migrant communities in the Canary Islands.
Pope Leo XIV has arrived in Spain with a sharp focus on immigration, social justice, and confronting the Catholic Church's internal crisis regarding clergy sexual abuse. This historic week-long visit spanning Madrid, Barcelona, and the Canary Islands is explicitly designed to turn papal attention back to Europe's Christian roots, while directly addressing the front line of the continent's migrant influx. Waving Vatican and Spanish flags, emotional crowds gathered outside Madrid's royal palace to welcome the pontiff as he prepares to navigate these heavy social and political landscapes.
I'm excited, so excited. It was about time a pope visited Spain.
I think it's a truly unique experience. There are no words to describe it.
Addressing King Felipe VI and listening government officials, Pope Leo delivered a forceful critique of modern Western populism. Drawing on Spain's medieval history where Christians, Muslims and Jews coexisted, he underscored that long-term stability is built on a culture of encounter, not confrontation.
Today, the temptation to gain popularity by fanning the flames of polarization seems to have grown rather than diminished, and human dignity continues to be violated. I invite everyone to set aside the divisive and polarizing narratives of your societal reality.
King Felipe reinforced this focus on human dignity, explicitly warning against the moral and social risks of unregulated artificial intelligence and modern technology.
New technology cannot be monopolized by a few, but must be an instrument in the hands of everyone that benefits all societies. That will only be possible if we keep people at the center of all speeches, never replaced, subjugated, or coerced by any algorithms.
The rigorous schedule ahead highlights the strategic weight of this papal mission. On Monday, Pope Leo will hold formal talks with Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez before becoming the first pontiff in history to address the Spanish Parliament. The journey will culminate in the Canary Islands, where the Pope, who has previously drawn sharp criticism from US President Donald Trump over his anti-immigration stances, is scheduled to directly meet with African migrants and the organizations dedicated to helping them.
A community festival in the U.S. city of Toledo has been overshadowed by gun violence after a shooting left multiple people injured and sparked a major police operation. Authorities are searching for those responsible as investigators work to determine exactly what happened. Joseph Heffernan, deputy chief at the Toledo Police Department, spoke to reporters about the shooting.
An unfortunate incident happened here in Toledo at about 5:37 p.m. We got a report of some shots fired near our Old West End Festival, which is a festival we have every year. Officers were quick to respond. They were right there when the shots were coming out. Appears as though there was at least two shooters. I think they were probably shooting at each other. And what ended up happening was 12 people were struck with bullets. That's what we have right now. Two of them critical. We're processing the scene. We do have some evidence, and we're following up on some leads. It's pretty active right now as far as the investigative part of this goes. The scene itself is secured. Matter of fact, I think we're just about breaking down the scene right now as far as the initial process.
Now let's take a look at the key stories shaping the region. Uzbekistan is turning to technology and innovation to address its most pressing environmental challenges. This follows the recently concluded Central Asia Eco Expo, which was held in the country. Here is more from our correspondent in Samarkand.
Uzbekistan is facing growing environmental challenges. Water scarcity, land degradation, desertification, and pollution continue to place increasing pressure on ecosystem and communities. Around 37 million people across Central Asia already live in areas affected by severe water scarcity, while climate change is accelerating glacier retreat and increasing environmental risks across the region. As these challenges grow more urgent, innovators are searching for new solutions. At Eco Expo Central Asia 2026, several projects demonstrated how technology and innovation could help address some of Uzbekistan's most pressing environmental issues. One challenge is the growing risk of wildfires. Since the beginning of 2025, more than 200 wildfires have been recorded across Uzbekistan, affecting over 1,600 hectares of land. The majority were detected in Surkhandarya region. To help tackle the problem, developers presented the Smart Forestry project, an artificial intelligence-based system designed to detect fires at an early stage, monitor the condition of forest and green areas, and improve the management of tree nurseries through automated monitoring and irrigation.
These devices could detect smoke, first of all, and give immediate signal to the situation center using the artificial intelligence. And afterward, situation room will work at 24/7 regime, and they immediately give an order to the nearest forest enterprise to react.
Environmental protection also requires faster and more accurate decision-making. Around the world, environmental projects have faced delays or setbacks due to complex administrative procedures and fragmented regulatory systems. Against this backdrop, Uzbekistan and the Italian chapter of the International Association for Impact Assessment signed a memorandum aimed at integrating artificial intelligence into environmental impact assessment procedures.
First of all, we have to define the framework on which we will develop the process. But if tomorrow morning Uzbekistan need tools, we have tools approved by the scientific community, so we can pilot starting from tomorrow morning, and starting from evidence we can create the effective legislation and regulatory system in Uzbekistan.
Environmental challenges are becoming increasingly costly for Uzbekistan. More than 80% of the country's water resources come from outside its borders. Up to 36% of water is lost through outdated irrigation canals, and the national water deficit could reach 7 to 15 million cubic meters by 2030. Experts say addressing these challenges will require not only technologists but also specialists trained to finance environmental solutions. Against this backdrop, Green University launched a new biodiversity finance academic module, developed in partnership with the United Nations Development Programme and supported by the governments of Germany and Switzerland.
This academic model is very important because today we need to be able to measure the extent of the damage we cause to nature. For example, when cities are built or when bridges and other infrastructure projects are constructed, they have a direct impact on the environment. Therefore, it is essential that we are able to assess and calculate the environmental damage resulting from such activities.
While the projects vary in scale and approach, they share a common goal: using innovation to prevent environmental problems before they occur. It is Sivil Rajab reporting from Samarkand, Uzbekistan, A-News.
The U.S. Embassy in Azerbaijan hosted an education fair in Baku, bringing together students, parents and alumni to explore higher education opportunities in the United States. A-News' Travis Richards was there.
The U.S. Alumni Fair in Baku brought together students, parents, educational professionals and alumni to explore higher education opportunities in the United States. Representatives from more than 45 U.S. universities and educational organizations took part. alongside over 50 Azerbaijani alumni and members of the US Embassy community. Participants learned about undergraduate, graduate, and exchange programs at leading US universities. These included institutions such as Yale University, Harvard University, Columbia University, and Carnegie Mellon University, among others. Chargé d'Affaires Amy Collins said the United States remains a leading destination for Azerbaijani students, with continued growth in recent years. Last academic year, 1,329 Azerbaijani students studied in the US, an 18% increase on the previous year. She added this marks the 4th consecutive year of strong growth, reflecting growing confidence in American higher education. The event also highlighted Education USA advising services, virtual American spaces, and US government-funded exchange programs. US Embassy consular staff delivered a presentation on student visa procedures, offering guidance and answering questions from students and families.
Students get really specific information here that will help them go from being interested in the United States to actually making the move to studying in the United States. Our colleagues here today are really helping students navigate the particularities of how to apply and how to get a visa to study in the United States.
Organizers say the fair reflects growing interest among Azerbaijani students in studying in the United States and highlights strong educational ties between the two countries. I'm Travis Richards in Baku for A News.
Turkey has marked World Environment Day with the launch of the Global Zero Waste Forum in Istanbul. The event has brought together more than 7,000 participants from over 180 countries, including government officials and city leaders. The forum focuses on how zero waste practices can help fight climate change and support sustainable development. Organizers say the event will help strengthen cooperation ahead of COP31. Turkey is set to host the United Nations Climate Change Conference COP31 in Antalya from November 9th to 20th. Delegates from nearly 200 countries are expected to attend.
Today we have 3 fantastic speakers that will...
This concludes our news update for the hour. Thank you for your time and stay tuned for more updates.